Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to your instant reaction pod. Consider this your stoppage time as we review Lazio versus Porto in the Europa League. Caleb, I mean, I don't. It is all about Pedro. What a finish! How you feeling, man?
Oh my goodness, I feel amazing. Top of the table in Europa League, 4-0. I mean, Pedro is prime form of his life.
He is
Barca Pedro doesn't
prime.
even compare. This is better than Chelsea Pedro. This is better than Barca Pedro. This is the greatest version of Pedro in history.
I mean, my word. We'll jump into this thing and kind of go through our normal. I'm still just on an absolute high. You start it, where we usually start it. Starting 11, you see Nuno Tavares back, Romagnoli paired with Giroud, Marusic at that right back. Vecino Guendouzi, your midfield pairing. Pedro sitting behind Tasti Castellanos, Zaccagni and Chauna with Mandas in goal. Another rotation. A strong starting 11 still. You think really early into this one that we've got a couple chances. I mean, 7-minute mark, you got Chauna with a nice break, plays a good ball to Tati, skies it, but then 1 minute later, Tati with a really nice finish, but it's whistled offsides. I think it was Romagnoli who played that ball in. It was a really nice ball, and then you see just that first half a lot of chances. You feel really good. I texted you and was just like, man, this Lazio side looks really good. Up for it. And I know you're like, yeah, this is who we are, right? But I'm always a little bit. Maybe I'm waiting for the glass slipper to kind of fall off the foot. But Lazio looked up for it, and 45th minute, we're deep into stoppage in that first half, and Lazio bags a really important goal to really, for me, kind of, make it known that they were the team that, was the better team in that first half. It's a nice goal from Romagnoli. Tati again in the mix of things with an assist, nice little header. And then, we see a second half that's maybe a little bit more cagey. Porto with a few chances. And then in the 66th minute, we see a little bit of a lapse in play. Maybe something that harkened back to what we saw last year. Midfielder's not really around, and Porto levels it, and you see again a switch turned on with Lazio. Perhaps substitution's a big part to play. And late into this one, 92nd minute, the ageless wonder, Pedro, after a nice ball in, a wonderful world-class touch, finishes it to give Lazio the 2-1 victory, to see Lazio remain top of the tables, 4 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses, 12 points. Give me your 3 words or less, Caleb, to describe this one.
My 3 words are find a way. I think that's been a consistent theme with this Lazio side. It's been good sometimes in terms of really pretty attacking play. We're having a blast. Sometimes it's a little ugly, but this team continues to find a way. In this game, it came by way of late into the first half, late into the second half. Nothing happened, really all that much between, for those 44 minutes before that. Some half chances here and there, but our center back, Romagnoli, scores a goal off a set piece. And then you have Pedro again finding a way late. He's been critical in finding a way for us as of late. But I think this team has shown that whether the game is going in their favor, whether things are skewed towards them or not, whether they look like the more prominent side, regardless of how the game's sort of flowing, they're gonna find a way.
Yeah, and look, what I think you're seeing here is, regardless of scoreline, which the scoreline's been adding up, this is one of those rare seasons where scoreline has been indicative of like who the better team was, and I was like, man, we're gonna get out of this. Like, I guess it's a fair draw, but like I definitely feel like we're the better team. Just going through the statistics, 48% possession for Lazio, 52% for Porto, but again on the higher end of expected goals, 1.35 to 0.56, 11 total shots to Porto's 7, 5 of those on frame to Porto's 2. Lazio with 3 big chances, Porto with none. And again, it's just it. Lazio is not just outplaying teams, which is what you want to see. Of course, you want the results, but it's just
Right.
so nice to see. For me, Pedro is inevitable. My 3 words. I mean, you're seeing a player right now that I was telling you before we jumped on the live. Like, I jotted my note, my man of the match, and it's going to kind of all segue. So, my man of the match was Pedro before that goal. I just loved what I saw,
Yeah.
this grit, this energy. I mean, he's playing like a 27-year-old. He is out there making sliding tackles in the 85th minute, deep into a match. I mean, you're talking about a guy who should have no legs, let alone being able to be as spry as he is. And class never ages. You may
Yep.
lose your pace, your speed, your strength a little bit, but that technique, that world class touch that he makes to bring that ball
Oh
in
man,
and
that was
finish it
insane,
off
man.
under pressure. I mean, my words, just absolutely world class from him. And again, we've talked about how some of this is just reverberating around the squad, and they're all fighting. It was 90 plus minutes of players fighting, and I love to see it. So I know I kind of blew my man of the match, but who was yours?
I'm actually gonna go because you said Pedro, which I think is the obvious choice in this game. I'm actually gonna go with Gigot, our center back Gigot. I he kind of got so this is his second game for us. This is arguably the most difficult opponent that we're playing in Europa League so far. And he was thrust in there with a new partner, Romagnoli. Again, here we go talking about Romagnoli. Once again, another partner. Romeo had a good game too. Had a
Yeah,
huge goal for us. I could have very easily given it to Romagnoli. I'm gonna give Jago a little bit of love though because, um, man, he got 1 yellow card early, and for the rest of the game, he had to play on that yellow. And I thought he was super, super precise, um, and just sharp for the whole match. He made some big tackles. He had some great recoveries. The clearances that he made were never in the trouble. Again, this is a guy who's played the second time with this team, but he's come in, and maybe this is a credit to Baroni, of course, but also a credit to him of being able to come in immediately, get to the flow, understand what his coach wants, playing in a high stakes game like a Europa League match against Porto, being under pressure. We didn't really dominate the ball as much this match, and I thought he came in and was really solid, had some big plays, won pretty much every duel that I saw. So I wanted to give him a shout out this game.
yeah. I think that's a good one. I really liked what I saw from that center back pairing. Again, you and I have already
Mhm,
discussed this on a podcast, but that credit also has to be given to Romagnoli for another
mhm.
new partner. There's a lot of opportunities for inconsistency, and he's been really consistent. Obviously, walks away with a goal. Patrick on our YouTube comments beat me to the punch, but I also wanted to give a shout out to Chauna. I thought he was really lively. He was involved. Little mistakes here and there, but I thought he was another player that just was very active. I thought you saw that really from our front 3 this entire match. Front
Yeah,
3 and
yeah.
Pedro. I mean,
Mhm.
across the board. Even when these Oxen came in, very, very active, very lively. Zakani the same. I thought they continued to put pressure. Nuno as well. Again, beating players. I thought he made a couple of very, very key challenges and tackles, and just I think when you think about the goal that we conceded, it wasn't on the center backs, and I think maybe that was the area for me that until we made the substitution of Rovella, I thought our midfield was kind of struggling. I thought you saw a relatively poor match from Gendouzi, who I would say was probably my bidone for the match. What about you? Is that harsh on what I think about maybe what our midfield looked like pre Rovella?
I want to say Ravella, yes, he came in and he changed the game, but Ravella also came in when Porto drew the match and now could be a little more relaxed. Porto were pushing to draw the match, and I think when Porto got the goal, they're like, "Look, we're away. Inside the Olympico. It's a tough place. We're happy with the draw. Let's park it." So I think okay, Rebella of course had a good impact, but I also think Porto sort of ceded a bit of that pressure that they were having because they got the equalizing goal. They were like, okay, we can chill out a little bit, relax, not press as much. We have a point. We'll be happy to end the game this way. I think they felt that way. I do think it's maybe like 70% that, 30% Ravella, maybe a little bit more Ravella. Regardless, Ravella made an impact. He was everywhere once again. Um, this is a tough one for me to come up with a bidone because um, I thought like even Marusic was really solid too. I thought he had some good moments. I thought I can't really blame anyone else. I'm gonna say I think the two weaker links were Guendouzi and Vecino. Vecino missed a wide open sitter goal. I'm gonna go with Vecino just because I think he can be better than what he showed. Same with Guendouzi. I think either one works. Again, they weren't terrible performances, but our midfield was definitely why this game was maybe a little more difficult than it should have been.
Yeah, look, Ganduzi's somebody we're obviously both really high on. I think he's had a couple matches now where he's not been at his best, and
Mhm.
it's obviously there's a lot of miles there, but I don't know if he's maybe a little bit tired. But today I just thought it was a little bit of a sloppier Ganduzi, a player who I
Yeah, it
would say
was.
is very much to blame for that goal that we conceded because again you didn't see any midfielders tracking back. It was a they cut in and it was a cutback, and there was nobody around it. And it was a clean finish, and Ganduzi's got to be there. And I think a perfect example of just maybe where he wasn't at his best. It's the 81st minute. Ganduzi's kind of holding on to the ball a little bit too long, trying to dribble around some folks. Has to start running backwards to shield off a player instead of making a really simple pass back to his center backs. He gets it stripped, it's taken away, and then he has to foul and he picks up a yellow. And it's just one of those ones where understanding, the point in the match where Lazio's got control and just
Yeah.
maintain that. He's a player that's been there on big stages, so just expect a little bit more from him. And but again, the grit's there, and that's what's most important. But for me, given who he is as a player and what we saw from him today, and obviously that goal that we conceded, I gotta give it to him. But
Yeah,
what would you?
real quick here, just real quick while we're on Guendouzi, and that's a credit to him because our standards for him have increased. Right? Like we have a guy like Alberto last year, we gave a lot of flack for him. Maybe he was sometimes one of the better players, but because we had these expectations for him, because he's supposed to be a leader and a critical guy, they're hold to a different standard than someone like Shauna, right? So, credit to Guendouzi for that. But yes, definitely a subpar performance from what we're used to seeing from him.
Yeah. What did you see tactically today? What did you feel like we did that maybe gave Porto fits?
Well, I was asking myself today, I was watching the game, and I'm like, man, Nuno had a good game. Just I would say it had a very balanced game on both ends. Good defensively, had some good moments going forward. But again, the question for me right now, the biggest question surrounding this team right now is we have one guy who has 8 assists, and the next leading assister I think is maybe like Zaccagni with like three. I think don't quote me on that. My question is, and sort of my concern is, how can we involve our wide players a little bit more? Right? Like when Dia and Tati are in a role and they're in a rhythm, we're creating opportunities. But sometimes these teams get really central and compact, like Porto did today, and it makes things difficult. Where but Shauna got a lot of touches, Zakanya got a lot of touches. So for me, those are the moments where we actually look the best. Where okay, we came into the middle, we pushed it wide quickly, we gave Zaccagni and Shauna good 1v1 opportunities, let them do their thing. I think that was the best thing we saw today. But I do think that Porto's midfield sort of overran ours today. Um, and so that's kind of what I saw on that front.
Yeah, and look, you kind of got what you asked for in that goal that Pedro scored, right? I think it's Isaacson that whips the ball in on a nice little cross, and
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
and so you saw some of that. I think it's just those players maybe have been lacking in some of their
Hmm.
ball delivery, and so today was nice. We've talked about Lazzari at length over the years, and we've seen a little
Mhm.
bit better ball distribution from him this year, and so I think you're going to start seeing more and more of those goals. Right? You mentioned Luis Alberto. For a player as brilliant as he was, like anybody that's listened to this podcast knows how frustrating he was when it came to set pieces, and we just never scored. And
Yeah.
how do we score our
Oh,
first goal
man.
today? It's a good set piece. It's a good ball delivery, and whether it's Sakani delivering or Rovella, it's just both better options than what we've had the past couple of
Yeah.
years. So I think it's a little bit of like happenstance that maybe nobody else is picking up or racking up enough assists to cover or to close the gap from Nuno. But I think we're seeing a lot of dangerous balls that are still being played in. So
And
yeah, I
again,
think
th this goes back to just we find a way.
yeah,
That's why I feel so encouraged when I go into a game like Porto because I'm like, when Alberto was off, right? When we had some of our key, Milinkovic Savic was off. If they had, some of these key players were off that game, it would I mean, we had nothing else going for us for a period of time. This game, it's like, it's fine, Nuno, like, we lost Nuno, right, because of red card. Hey, guess what? We'll find other ways to get back to
yeah,
goal, right? And I think that comes also with having such a versatile squad. I think when we saw Lotito building the squad, bringing in Guendouzi, Tati, Dia, even Pedro, these are all guys that are super versatile. These are guys that have the ability to play different positions, have different sorts of skill sets, and are able to be a creator if they need to be, or be a finisher if they need to be. I think can be that creator. Dia can be a creator. Guendouzi in their own ways can be right, be a creator. And so I think that's what instills me with confidence and makes me believe that, hey, this success is sustainable because we're not overly reliant on an Alberto, on a Chiro, on a Milik Savage, right?
yeah, and we're also not dependent on like one specific tactic or players kind of
Yeah,
being locked into one position
yeah,
because you
yeah,
mentioned somebody like Nuno who all of a sudden you see him in the middle of the pitch and you would think he was our central attacking midfielder and
yeah,
then late in matches you see Pedro playing out wide and so
yeah,
there's a little bit of flexibility, mobility with some of these players, which makes it really hard to defend. Versus
yeah.
last year, you kind of knew, right? You knew Cheeto's kind of going to
Mhm.
be in a certain position. You knew where your wingers were going to be, and that's that. And it's a play that's going to get recycled, and you kind of understood. And I think we are a lot harder to defend, but I really think about just the confidence that reverberates from every player. You sub out Nuno and you get a pretty confident Pellegrini who's out there,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
I'm now we're confident in seeing there's not this gap between the player quality and
Mm,
then Chauna, right, who has kind of struggled all season long
yeah,
and
mhm.
plays a pretty good match, probably his best match in a Lazio shirt, and still like he gets the ball taken from him. Remember, he recovered and he's like trying to dribble past people, and I love to see it because in any other system, under almost any other coach, once you lose a success, like you lose out on a successful dribble, like you're going to be more apprehensive, especially a player that's not playing well. That you probably think you're going to get yanked. There's no way you can try and take somebody on, and you maybe play the safe route. I just love to see players feel like they can fail under Baroni and they're not going to get yanked right away.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing about this squad.
I love that you mentioned that because I think that, we see sometimes players, and fans get upset and say, "Why are you not taking them on? Why are they passing it backwards?" A lot of that can come down to instruction. And if players feel, if they try things, if they try and flick. We saw Shauna today. He tried 3 back heel flicks today to
Yep.
make a pass. Now, is that ideal? Probably not. However, that right there, if that doesn't tell you how the players feel about being able to take risks and make mistakes under Baroni, then I don't know what else will, because you don't try that 3 different times if you genuinely believe that your coach is gonna get mad, right? This is something you like, the coach encourages it, be yourself. And I think that a byproduct of this is that our players are able to play their true selves. Tati is at
Yeah.
his best when he's having fun, making flicks, doing no look passes, right? He's that kind of guy, right? Tavares as well. Played at different clubs, has come here, and guess what? I bet you Baroni has been like, we brought you here because of you, because of what you bring, not because of this mold that you have to fit. we brought your profile because we love your profile. We want more of that, right? And
Yep.
so we're seeing some of these. We have a lot of really creative and risk takers on this team right now, which just makes it a lot of fun. But if you try and put them, what is the phrase, like a square peg in the round hole? Like it's just never gonna work. And so Baroni's done a great job of making sure everyone's feeling confident, safe, and yeah, willing to do what they want to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, every club around the world wants to like Pep Guardiola it and kind of suck out some of the personality out of players. And I've personally hated seeing where the game's gone because you don't see that like technical brilliance as much, right? You don't see your Ronaldinho's, even your Neymar. Like some of that has just been squashed out of the game, and I love that Baroni is kind of bringing that back and allowing for it. And then when you don't see it, Daniel here on YouTube brings a really good point. It's like, yeah, somebody like maybe Zakani, when it comes to like his attack, like didn't create as much tonight, but you're seeing players that have that dual balance of like, all right, man, when it's off and like I'm not feeling it, I didn't bring the sauce today. Like I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna fight.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna fight. And then eventually, like you saw Pedro fighting and fighting, sliding in for tackles, like probably the last person you want to see diving in for a tackle. But then, on the other side, he's putting himself in position to score goals.
Right. No, it's been really special to see, and the thing for me is a big telling thing for me about team chemistry, buying into the coaches, substitutes. What are guys' faces when they get subbed off? What's sort of their body language, right? And if you see, whenever our quote unquote starters, right, come out, our first 11 comes out, there's never any like throwing of their shin guards. There's never any sort of this like kind of moppy face. They come in, give the next guy a hug. Let's get it on to the next, right? It's just there's just such a team mentality of fighting for each other, and a selflessness.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up because then when in the rare occasions where you see the opposite, so I think it was either the last match or the match before, Guendouzi was a little bit fired up and was like upset that he was subbed off. It was like late in the match. He has no real reason to be upset, but he's upset and he's fired up.
Yeah.
And in the post-match conference, Baroni, who, I mean, look, just kind of falling in love with that every bit of like how he manages, but his the way he handled it psychologically was like so brilliant. Whereas most managers maybe like get upset or try and like shy away from it. He like was like, no, I loved it. I want to see more of that. I want my players like to be upset. I want them to like care.
Yeah.
So I just think he has figured out how to press all the right buttons. He's figured out how to rotate, and I hope it stays this way because sometimes some of that stuff can change, and so I hope he keeps this like same energy and this ability and confidence to like throw out players and young players and be a little bit risky. But how? Look, again, I'll go back to the text message you and I had about like this Lazio side and you not being surprised about what we saw today. Like, how legit are we? I mean, how like we're a significant chunk into this season.
Yeah.
How
many
legit?
games are we into this?
Like at what point, right? We're 11 Serie A matches into this thing. We are 4 Europa League matches into this thing. I mean, we look pretty damn good. Like, where are we?
That's a good thing. I did say on that message of I'm not surprised. I sort of expect this as a standard now where we can come in into a game like this, rotate some players, still get a result, start strong. We're about a third of the way into the season, so I still believe it's a little too early to say like wholeheartedly to say you know, we're it. Top four is inevitable. I think it's still a little too early to say that, because I think we're about to approach the point of the season where fitness really starts playing a factor. We're talking about the halfway point. You're halfway into this. You're not as fresh as the first third. You're pretty fresh for that. But once you start getting into the nitty gritty moments that we're kind of already starting to go through that season right now, At the start of February. I think start of February is when things kind of take a different step, and where some teams that were kind of going high start to kind of peak off a little bit, slow down. That's sort of what I see, particularly in Serie A, how teams sort of trend. That's gonna be really interesting for me. It's sort of that January, February, March period is kind of where I'm interested because then you get you get kind of get revitalized for that last third of the season, right? And so there's a little bit more energy there, and so that's always kind of the point where I'm like, okay, how do we handle that point of the season?
Yeah, and look, we're in the thick of it right now. I mean, just this
Yeah.
week alone, it's like 3 games.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, right, news had broken of Castrovilli suffering a significant injury. It's going to be out for probably at least a month in the position area where we are at our weakest in terms of depth. And so now, like, you're going to be really leaning on a couple players, and we got to pray that we don't pick up any knocks, and you start to maybe see, like, right, Gendouzi, like, is he getting tired? Is that why we've seen a couple matches that aren't at their peak?
And on top of that, you also have World Cup qualifying, which is like some of the most intense matches you'll play as a player. We have some guys like Isaacson, Guendouzi, who are going to be part of that. Hopefully, Ravella should be
Yep.
inevitably getting onto that squad. Uh, hope if you're an Italian fan, an Italian national team fan, me, I don't care. I'm not Italian. I'd rather him just stay with the club. um, and avoid that. Will Tavares have some sort of spot to play for Portugal, who are struggling for attacking right now, who've been sort of a stagnant side as of late, right? Under Martinez, who likes to play with wing backs over in Portugal, right? These questions start to get asked because the better you are in the season play, the better your players are performing. Guess what? When you're in a league like Serie A, and you're in a team like Lazio, your players get called up. So, does that play a factor for World Cup qualifying? So, it's gonna be fascinating to see. I will say if everyone's healthy, I think this is sustainable. I feel really good about our ability to keep this up. If our players are fit, once our players start going down, it could get ugly.
Yep. Well, we've got one more match in this stretch of games that we had identified as being critical to our place in the standings. I wanted an absolutely clean sweep. I wanted 12 out of 12 points. Here we are with Monza on Sunday, a chance to make it a clean 12 for 12 before heading to international break. I mean, big opportunity, Caleb. No, I'm not
Huge.
going to be able to cover this one with you because I will be traveling back from our own playoff game with the Lights this weekend. But,
Nice.
big one against Laziali and Nesta at the helm, who hopefully, helps us out a little bit. But here we are in a huge position, top of the table. We'll be here to cover the weekend's match, or at least Caleb will. But as always, sempre